I'm filming this video just a few days before Easter, so I thought the perfect subject to do would be an Easter bunny. I'm going to use the wet on wet technique in watercolour, and these are the ingredients that I've got. So I've got a piece of paper which is 300 grams cotton paper. I've just chopped it up from a much larger piece. 2 pots of water, one that I can use clean to put the clean water on the paper, and the other one that I can use to wash off my brush. And then I've got this A Gallo set of custom colours, which I put together a couple of months ago. I made a video on the swatching of that, so I'll link to that below if you want to see that one. But the colours are these, and I thought they would be perfect for this painting today because I've got all these gorgeous neutrals that I can use for the rabbit, and then these greens that I can use for the dandelion, a gold for the dandelion head, and a bit of pink for the inside of the ears. I'm probably not going to use the lilac or the pink, quinacridone pink. So taking those away, that's probably going to be our colour palette for today. Maybe, we'll see. I'll put that to one side for now. And the first thing I'm going to do is draw out the rabbit. I already have an extremely faint outline of the rabbit on the paper here. I don't know if you can see, but I'm going to go over it. And I just did that because I found when I'm filming and I want to draw something, sometimes the pressure of being on the camera, it just does not come out right. So in order to not waste a whole ton of paper, I've done it faintly beforehand, so I'll just go over it now. In preparation for this video, I did a whole bunch of bunnies. I just basically looked at a whole load of bunnies and then just started drawing them. And some of them came out a little bit more curious than others. And some of them in different positions, just kind of trying to get a feel for their body and the positioning of it, because we all know they have 2 wonderful, amazing long ears, but sometimes when I'm drawing for my imagination, the positioning just goes a bit off. So I did some sketches and played around a bit, and that's why I did a very faint outline on the piece of paper that I'm going to paint on, because I wanted to make sure that I was going to get something that was going to come out right and not one looking like him, for example. Or even though he's super cute, I wanted my bunny to be a little bit more bunny-like. This one here is a bit of a comedian, and this one here reminds me of a kind of almost like he's praying. Yeah, his like chin got a bit squished, so things can go wrong. Anyway, I thought it would be fun to show those and explain why I did the faint outline of the trace. So now let's go back to the video and paint the bunny. So we're starting with the head. The rabbit's head is kind of narrower at the top and comes out slightly at the bottom, so we'll just make it like that. I'm using a graphite watercolor pencil from Faber-Castell, which I really love. This is the 8B, so I'm just doing it really faintly, and then in theory, because it's a watercolor pencil, it will also mix in with the paint and the water, so I won't end up with 2 visible pencil lines, hopefully. For the eyes, I'm going to come in and make a kind of right angle shape and then round on the outside. Rabbits tend to have, or they don't tend to have, they do have eyes on the sides of their head as opposed to on the front of their heads. And then for the ears, we'll just go out and make a nice big ear with a little front bit there. I absolutely love rabbits. And then for the body, we'll come down and just make a nice big swoop out for the back. This is just a really loose, easy rabbit. There's not too much realism going to be going on here. And the front paws. Bit of a curve for the back leg, and then the nice long foot behind. Okay, so that's our simple rabbit shape. And then, of course, the all-important V for the nose. The dandelion we will improvise later, but let's get the rabbit going first of all. Sometimes I find it much easier to have a tube of watercolor paint, because then you can put as much paint on the plate, on the palette as you like, and you can mix it up. Whereas with these half pans, it's a bit harder. So I'm going to have to dig in there and get as much paint out as I feel like I'm going to need for the wet on wet technique. So I'll just do that now. I'm going to want some puddles of Van Dyke brown. See what I mean? There's hardly anything comes off. anybody has a better way of getting lots of paint out, then do tell me. Icelandic Red Earth. I love the name of this, and I love the idea that it would come from some rocks in Iceland. Whether it actually does or not, who knows, but I love the idea of that. That was actually one of the major motivating factors to choose this colour for its name. And then I want a pool of tourmaline as well. Not worrying too much about any contamination between these colours because they're going to get mixed up anyway, but just to have some already there. And then some Potter's Pink. Okay, so I'm just going to put the water exactly where I want it. So I'm going to start off with the head, and I'm going to put it on the ears, just on these. Oops, I've immediately dropped a piece on my paper. Okay, dry that off. All right, so I'm going to put it, making sure it doesn't drop everywhere, on the tops of the ears here. Now I'm not putting on too much, but just to damp the paper, but not so that it's absolutely drowning. And then you can see there the graphite light of the pencil is already mixing with the water. I'm going to avoid the eyes because we'll come back to those later. I'm also going to avoid just underneath this V of the nose and the line that goes down. So the paint won't end up going where I haven't put the water, so I can kind of control it to some extent in that way. And now I'm just going to start dropping in some colour. So I'm going to go with the Van Dyke Brown. And we'll just start up here on the ears. And it immediately runs in. So I can tip the paper a bit and get it to come down. This reminds me of a gorgeous Rex rabbit that I met one time. It was a really beautiful velvety rabbit. The Rex rabbits have this gorgeous, soft, really incredibly soft fur. And the colour of this one reminds me of that. I'm just going to take the brush with a damp brush and just run it along that line so that there's not such a harsh line between the edge of the ear. That'll just soften it a bit. And then we can come back up to the ears in a while. So I'm going to let the face dry, and while it's drying, I'm going to move on to the body. So for this one, I'm just going to put the water everywhere because there's nowhere that I really need to avoid. And then we can play. I'm going to let it touch that so that can run in. So I'm going to take the Van Dyke Brown again. Ah! Well, that was not planned. Let's see if I can just get rid of that. Okay. We will build that into our dandelion later. Back to the rabbit. So just giving it a sweep down its back, over the leg, following the lines of the back leg. And then I'm going to give it some of this Iceland red for the front. And we'll give it a touch of brown, grey as well, just some colour variation. Okay, so I'm going to go back in with a bit more colour and just go around that edge of where that leg would be folding, just to give it a bit of definition. And then I want a bit more darkness also in between these two front paws. Just giving it a bit more definition on its back. So while that's drying, I'm going to go back up to the ears, which I'm loving the kind of, can you see that kind of reddy colour coming out in the paint? It's got these really lovely dark granules and then an under kind of colour of pink, which is spectacular. That was the Van Dyke brown. So now I'm going to put some water onto the rest of the ears. And go in with some Potter's Pink. Which really complements the pink that was coming out from the Van Dyke brown. I think I'm just going to let that dry for a little bit and then come back in with the eyes, because I don't want to have a collision of colours while that's happening. I'm just going to add a little hint of a tail at the back, and that's going to be using the slate grey. It's quite hard to get any pigment off it. I find I really have to kind of dig deep in the slate grey to get much pigment off it. It's a very light colour. So for the eyes, I'm going to use the Payne's Grey, and I'm going to do it just wet on dry because I want a bit more control. And I'm going to go around, leaving room for a catch light in the eye. I always find that as soon as you put the catch light into an eye, it really brings the animal to life. The brain just kind of suddenly translates it into something that's really an eye looking at you. So once I've got that in place, I can then add a bit more pigment. Okay, so I think I'll just mix a teeny bit of the Payne's Grey in with the brown just to get a bit of a colour variation. And then I can just deepen that up. Just going to add a bit more, I just want a bit more colour down here. The paint's not quite dry, so it can just kind of merge in. Okay, so now for the dandelion, I'm just going to, I think it'd be better if I had the water over here, because I won't have to keep reaching across my painting and dropping water all over it. So yeah, I'm just going to mix some of this amazing colour Macrolite hue with the Payne's Grey to get a bit of a darker green than I have in this palette. Okay, so that's going to be for the stalk of the dandelions. I'm going to add a bit of the Victoria green to it to to paint the leaves. They have these really interesting shaped leaves, which are a bit like an arrow at the top, and then they have some raggedy bits and kind of go in. Okay, I'm just going to let that dry before I do the head. Okay, I think things are more or less dry now, so I'm going to come in with the dandelion head with this amazing gold, antique gold. When I bought it, I thought it was yellow and just was called antique gold, but it actually turns out that it is a sparkly metallic antique gold. So let's just make a dandelion. It's almost as big as the rabbit. Oops, never mind. Life does not always have to be about realism, hey? Okay, well, I think that should keep him going for a while. And then after that, let's put in some grass, just some little, using the Victoria green, which is this really lovely grassy green. Again, this one is really pale, so I really feel like I have to really dig deep to get any pigment on my brush. Okay, so let's just make some grassy, and it would be good if I put that in the view. Okay, just some grassy kind of marks to indicate that the rabbit is sitting on some grass. Okay, and there it is. It almost reminds me of one of those kiddies paintings where they put the line of grass at the bottom, and I just need a line of sky at the top, and it would be a perfect kid's drawing. But that's how it's going to go for today. So I hope you enjoyed the watercolor bunny, and have a go at it yourself. It's just a super simple technique. It doesn't really matter whether it comes out realistic or not. It's just about having fun with your colors, just enjoying yourself, going for it, making splodges as you can see that I did, and not worrying about the outcome, just having a good time. If you're enjoying my videos, I would really appreciate a like or subscribe, or both, and comment below, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Bye. As a final touch, I might risk adding some whiskers. I think I'm going to do them in the Payne's Grey, because that is the colour that has the most pigment, and I will be most likely to get a good result. So I'm just going to put one or two. This could wreck the whole thing, but we'll see. I'll just do it. I'll just go 1, 2, and 1. Okay, well, that's not so bad.